Welcome everyone to another episode of Calcio Corner. In this week's episode, we'll be looking at the rise of Arsenal, a team who lacked an identity just a few years ago to now being one of the brightest young teams in all of world football. The first area we're going to look at is the transition from legendary manager Arsene Wenger into Unai Emery back in 2018. Emery, a three-time Europa League winner with Sevilla, came to Arsenal in 2018 with really high hopes, maintaining that kind of unique style of play that Arsenal have, but it just did not seem to work.
I think the reason it didn't work was just the signings he made. Poor signings, old players, there was not much youth in the squad. And I just don't know what went wrong. We're the only team he didn't win the Europa League with. He wins Sevilla 3 times and Villarreal right after they win the Europa League.
Yeah, we'll be touching on kind of the market strategy Arsenal had around that time later, but it just seemed like the combination of poor signings and lack of financial backing that he had, it just did not seem to work. But with that being said, in his first season, they were in a Champions League spot for the majority of the season. Match day 34, they were in 4th place, neck and neck with Chelsea, but in the final 4 games, they only picked up 4 of 12 points and ended up missing out on the Champions League. And then, obviously, to compound that, they lose the Europa League to Chelsea in awful fashion, 4-1 in Baku.
It's one of the worst finals I've ever seen. I still have not watched the highlights from that game because there really aren't any. It's just, I just don't know what the squad he went with. Petr Cech starting in the final. I know it was his last game, but I think he should have played Ospina, who played throughout the entire tournament and played really well. Aubameyang was a bright spot that season, the best signing we've made in a really long time. But it hasn't worked out now, but he was great back then. He really has kept us up, and especially during Emery's time, he kept us afloat.
Yeah, because there wasn't that much going on. Again, not great signings. Even when they signed Pepe, it really didn't work out with him. But even in that last 4 games of the league season, they played Crystal Palace, Leicester, Burnley, and Brighton, only picking up 4 points from that. And even in that final, you have the likes of Giroud scoring and celebrating against Arsenal. It just was not a great season. Even if he could have salvaged a Europa League, even to make up for the disaster at the end of the season, he just couldn't.
I live a life of pain.
The area that we want to dissect is the market strategy Arsenal implied during Emery and even Wenger's time. When Wenger started with Arsenal, it was very proper signings, smart signings, not spending too much. Obviously at that time, the money was a little bit different than it was today, but buying the likes of Henry, Bergkamp, Petit, Vieira, not for very expensive amounts. They were one of the lower spenders during that time, but very smart signings. As the years went on, Arsenal lost that ability to attract big players, and it became a situation where they were spending money on players that didn't deserve that money. They were giving high wages and long contracts to players that were mediocre at best, and it became impossible for them to move on from them. And it had this team very static, where they couldn't improve, and they were stuck with the same 5 or 6 players that they couldn't move on from.
Yeah, I remember when they signed Kolasinac and Socrates, who they've just offloaded. They just offloaded Kolasinac in the winter to Marseille, but I'm pretty sure he's on loan, so he's still on their books.
Yeah.
But Socrates is finally gone. They just make these signings of players, mediocre players that had decent seasons, like 1 or 2 good seasons, and they put them on high wages, so then we're screwed. Who else?
You have Aubameyang, even to an extent Aubameyang, because his new contract became a problem.
He did deserve a new contract, but as soon as he signed that contract, his play went downhill.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Yeah, put him on £400,000 a week, and he just was not performing to it. You have the likes of Socrates, Welbeck, Mustafi, Bellerin, Nacho Monreal, like these guys collecting high wages that weren't performing. Like, they're not going to get you to a level, even top 4 level. They're
No. That's why they finished 8th last year.
Yeah, the Europa League level at best, and it kind of set Arsenal back 2 to 3 years and made Arteta's job very difficult when he came in the first few years to get them to where he wanted to be.
I was low as well. He was on like, what was it, 500,000 a week?
500, yeah.
And he wasn't even playing because the attitude, him and Arteta didn't get along. It was a mess, man.
Yeah.
Some tough years.
Yeah, they just couldn't offload them because the wages are so high, and obviously they're not good enough to go to better teams, so they had to eat a good chunk of wages, just like Aubameyang. They pretty much they took the whole contract. He pretty much just went to Barca for free because he wasn't going to play. He was pretty much getting paid not to play for Arsenal.
One of the best things Arteta has done while he's been at Arsenal is offloading players. He's gotten rid of so many people. Bellerin's on loan. He's not going to come back. he's put in Ainsley Maitland-Niles on loan, who just doesn't play, and it was a bit toxic with him. Same with Aubameyang. Ozil's gone, and he sent so many people out, and it's allowed for the youth to get their chance in the squad and not these players with big wages.
Yeah, very ruthless approach, especially with Aubameyang and Ozil, because he just completely put them out of the squad and put them off to the side. No one really knows why, but
they're fan favorites as well.
Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes to get them off the books, you have to do something like that to allow some of these players like Odegaard, who we'll touch on, and Martinelli to kind of shine through and get their opportunity. This is what you kind of have to do, and it might not be the best approach at times, but that was the only way to get Arsenal where they are now.
He basically wants a really positive dressing room, so that's why he got rid of Guendouzi as well, who's definitely not coming back. Saliba is gone. I don't see him coming back, even though I want him to come back. But yeah, Arteta's been great with the market.
Yeah,
spending. This 2021 window was the best window, I think. The summer one, despite having no one in the winter being signed, it's whatever, because they are performing.
Yeah, I think it was a really, at the time, for how much money they spent, a lot of people criticized that market, but they went for players with upside. They went with players that can grow rather than not going to say established players, but players that would cost more because they've been doing it for a lot longer. Obviously, Arsenal were out of Europe, no Europa League, no Conference League, no Champions League, so it was a lot more difficult to attract bigger name players, so they went with the likes of Ben White, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, and even just promoting Martinelli more. And that was kind of the strategy they went with, and we'll touch upon how that has affected the team in this season specifically.
Yeah, just under 23 players that are willing to shine on the big stage, and they want European football.
Yeah.
They missed Conference League by like 1 point because Leicester bottled it again. But yeah, the best signing I think has been Odegaard, which we'll touch upon later. And Ramsdale, incredible signing. Everyone criticized him because he's been relegated with Sheffield, Chesterfield, and Bournemouth, but he's changed the team like incredibly.
Yeah. In terms of what got Arsenal back to where they are now, it had to be Arteta coming in. A manager who came in the 2019-20 season, and there was always a little bit of hype around him because of him being an assistant with Pep, learning from him all of his tactics and training methods that he would implement. But he was a young manager with bright ideas, and you could see that right away. Winning the FA Cup in his first season with a team that was probably the weakest team in the competition at that time, winning it with the likes of David Luiz, Mustafi, and Nacho Monreal in defense, or others like that. Like, it wasn't a great team to begin with, and they were able to win the FA Cup over beating City and Chelsea in the final. Really big accomplishment for him, but it always felt like it was a great accomplishment, but the next thing to happen, they weren't going to be the best. The team wasn't that great. You saw the likes of David Luiz, they brought in Willian. So the team, again, more bad signings. But again, it just didn't seem like they were going to really progress even though they won the FA Cup.
Yeah, the FA Cup was, I don't know if it had to do with no fans being in the stands or whatever. People say it was just like a dodgy FA Cup. Arsenal did have an easy road to the final. I remember they played like Portsmouth, Bournemouth, and stuff like that. But against City, that was one of the best games I've ever seen Arsenal play, especially Mustafi. This guy just shut down Sterling all game. He was in his back pocket. It was incredible. And the final was even better. Aubameyang carried us in the semi-final and the final, let's be honest here. But he was so good. And Arteta got the whole team together finally.
Yeah.
You could feel there's tension in that squad, especially the next season with Willian coming in. He was just so bad. The worst player I've ever seen in an Arsenal shirt.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like they could replicate kind of the heights of that FA Cup season because of just, you had a lot of players that came in with different managers. You had Wenger's players, you had Emery. There wasn't really players that Arteta decided on, so he's kind of trying to figure out who are the players he can trust, who are the players he can go to and keep for the long haul, and that's what kind of took those 2 seasons of him finishing 8th to find out which players were his. As you can see now, a bunch of those players from that FA Cup team aren't even in the team, or they're not playing whatsoever. So you could kind of see that he had a huge effect in the turnover rate and who's coming into this team.
You just had to give him time, trust the process. At that time, we know when they got knocked out by Olympiacos in the Europa League when he first started, and even last season when we were losing like every game. I'm telling you, I just remember just not being happy at all last season. The Arsenal fans created on social media a very toxic environment, telling him to get out, whatever. Now they're all turning back on him, saying he's the best manager, he's going to take us far. But it's just, you just have to give him time. He's found the players that work in the system, and they're performing well. And he's made the Emirates a fortress again. I think the last time they lost the Emirates might have been against Chelsea back in August, 2-0. So since
Or it might have been City.
Oh, it was City. Yeah,
City. But before that, it wasn't.
Yeah, before
It's
before
been a
that
while.
was August. Yeah, a couple of draws, but still they've been incredible at the Emirates again, just with like what Wenger did.
Yeah, and again, it's coming down to the fact that he has his own players, which we touched upon, the Odegaards, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu Partey, Ben White, Gabriel as well. Those are all his players that he decided on, that he wanted, and you can see the effect that having your own players in your team has on you. And he got rid of some of the personalities that would hinder a very young squad, and so you're starting to see what it can do, what his effect has on this team, trusting the process, trusting his vision in this team.
And I hope he can lead us to the Champions League, because I think he can do well there. You get a good draw. Who knows how far they can go. Bringing in Ramsdale was probably the best thing he's done. Not bring him into the, like, they signed him, whatever, but taking Leno out and putting Ramsdale in was just amazing, because for years Arsenal have had a horrible defense. We all know that. They've been a meme. David Luiz all the time. Socrates, Laurent Koscielny, Mustafi, just a mess. But Ramsdale has really organized the defense. He's so commanding. He guides everyone. He's good with his feet, good distributor, but he's just organized the entire defense.
Yeah, it's a very modern goalkeeper they have, and again, a lot of people made fun of that signing because he was relegated with Sheffield. They were one of the worst teams.
You gotta look at the teams he's playing.
He's been one of the worst teams in Premier League history, but that's probably why it doesn't really fill you with a whole lot of confidence. But modern goalkeeper, really good with his feet, and it just kind of transformed the way they play, their ability to play out from the back, allowing the players to be more comfortable on the ball because they have someone behind them who can handle their own when they have the ball at their feet, which is something Leno really struggled with. And it's just transformed the way they've played. Arsenal are now a great team in possession, and we're seeing that by some of the goals they've scored this season.
Especially like last week at Watford. Great stuff from Odegaard, Saka. They're really linking up well, which is what we love to see. I want to see Smith Rowe in there, but I just don't know where he'll fit at the moment. But I'm sure they'll find a way. Martinelli's just coming into his element as well. I remember against Leeds back in December, that brace in the first half. He didn't get a lot of chances with Aubameyang and stuff, and he's been injured as well. But now he's really showing us what he can do.
Yeah, someone like Smith Rowe, they have so many options where they can go to Odegaard one game, have Martinelli off the left, Smith Rowe the next game. So there's a lot of interchanging, which can be a good and bad thing. But in this case, it's really good to keep the players motivated for more. And you saw Martinelli was out the team for a bit, comes back, scores against Watford. It just keeps all the players very motivated, wanting to do more, because it is a very young and hungry team that Arteta's assembled.
And I feel like with the success of the youth in the squad this season, we're going to see more of that in the coming years. So maybe they won't make tons of signings or big signings, but they'll give more chances to people like Charlie Patino, who we saw score against Sunderland in the Carabao Cup on his debut. Omari Hutchinson, Salah Dean, just good players in the academy that should get their time to shine.
Yeah, Arsenal have always had a very good academy of producing good young players, and Arteta's given them chances, and they've really flourished. Smith Rowe, Saka, they've really played a huge role in Arsenal's development.
And they've got leaders on that team too.
Yeah.
Like Arteta's not that old. He's in his 30s and he just played at Arsenal, so he's a great mentor for young players. And they also had Jack Wilshere training with them for the past few months while he looked for a club who's been, I'm sure he's been amazing on the training ground for these young players, because he was a baller back in the day.
Forward to the rest of the season for Arsenal, obviously they're in 4th place currently. They have 3 games they still have to play because of COVID rescheduling of games. Obviously they have tougher fixtures. They still got to play Liverpool, they got to play Chelsea, Spurs. There's still some games they need to play, but I feel the advantage they have on these teams, the lack of European fixtures that they have to play and the momentum they have, I think Arsenal come out and finish 4th place this year. United are just too far behind. They already have the max amount of games you can play, and they're also behind Arsenal too.
Yeah, well, Spurs don't have an advantage because they're on Europe either, because they're, But it's gonna be tough. A tough end of the season. They got United at home, Liverpool at home, Spurs and Chelsea both away, Villa away, it's just a tough fixture. But I think they might get fifth because we saw against Liverpool, they got battered 4-0. Chelsea got battered. United, they lost 3-2. So I don't know if they have the strength to play against these top teams, but anything could happen, honestly.
Yeah.
With the formation that Arteta uses, 4-2-3-1, anything could happen.
Yeah, I think they could nick a point here and there. It really depends. It just depends how they come out. That's all that matters.
They have to play every game like it's a cup final, which is what they've been doing. So they got Leicester tomorrow, which is going to be tough, but it's going to be an interesting one. So much for watching our video, guys, about Arsenal. Next week, we're going to be talking about the World Cup qualifiers because it's a big one, the final window. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and check out Dynasty Sports Network. The link will be in the description. Thanks, guys.
See ya.